So usually when we think about learning a language, or honestly, even trying to become a better public speaker, there's this expectation of treating it like laying bricks.
Right, like a construction project.
Exactly. You memorize a giant dictionary, you stack up thousands of these complex vocabulary words one by one, and eventually, you've built this massive wall of intelligence.
Yeah, it's completely treated as a volume game. We often fall into this trap of assuming that complexity equals fluency. Like, if we use bigger words, we must somehow sound smarter. But in reality, that kind of communication is just exhausting to process.
It really is. And when you actually listen to highly effective communicators, that whole brick wall analogy just completely falls apart. It's not about volume at all. It's about precision.
I completely agree.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are decoding the secret language of fluency. We're looking at how swapping just one or two seemingly simple words doesn't just, change a sentence. It completely rewires the emotional reality of the person listening to you.
And our core mission today, the thread tying all of this together for you, is how to make your communication incredibly simple to listen to and easy to understand.
Right, because that's the real goal.
Exactly. True linguistic mastery isn't about digging up complicated jargon at all. It's about finding the exact, precise word for a specific context, which allows your ideas to just transfer flawlessly into someone else's mind.
So let's start with how we navigate massive societal ideas. Think about the ongoing debate around social media. You could just say platforms, get people together.
Which sounds nice, but it's a bit passive.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at the source material and how major culture-shifting movements are described, like the #MeToo movement or those large-scale farmer protests, the word they use is mobilization. Platforms didn't just gather people, they mobilized them.
What's fascinating here is that mobilization fundamentally changes the perceived intent of the gathering. It actually borrows directly from military terminology.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, you aren't just standing around in a group. You are organized, activated, and directed toward a very specific purpose. It gives the concept teeth.
But then you look at the darker side of that exact same digital landscape, and the language becomes just as highly targeted.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't say people are just being mean online. We use the term cyberbullying. We talk about the rapid spread of misinformation and platforms collecting data without consent.
And there's this lingering feeling the document highlights, too, the feeling of being inadequate.
Yes. Notice how inadequate hits so much harder than simply saying social media makes people sad or jealous.
Right, because it targets a very specific psychological vulnerability. Inadequacy is that exact feeling of not measuring up when you compare your messy, behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's perfectly curated digital highlight reel.
It's so visceral.
It really perfectly diagnoses the modern condition.
Which leads us straight into the really intense debate over government regulation of these platforms. You often hear regulation called a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that classic tension.
Exactly. There's this tension between stopping fear-mongering and the risk that overregulation might stifle freedom of expression. And the fear is that it could effectively turn the internet into an echo chamber for whoever's in power, basically silencing legitimate public opinion.
What's really striking about those specific words is how they make the political argument so persuasive. They take abstract political science and ground it into a visceral, physical reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. How so?
Well, let's look at echo chamber. In a literal physical sense, it's a closed room where you shout and only your own voice bounces back at you. Nothing new can enter.
Oh, I see. So applying that to an algorithm or a digital space where a ruling party controls the narrative, it perfectly explains the danger without needing like a complex lecture on algorithmic bias. You just picture being trapped in a room with your own echo.
Precisely. It makes it so simple to understand. And then you have the word stifle. The physical root of stifle is to suppress someone's breath. Yeah, like pressing a pillow over a face. It means to smother. So when advocates argue that a policy might stifle legitimate opinion, they aren't just logically stating it will stop free speech. They are subconsciously painting a picture of suffocation. They make the abstract threat feel physically dangerous.
That's incredibly powerful. It bypasses the logical brain entirely and just hits the emotional brain directly. It's kind of like trying to prune a tree. You want to cut off the diseased branches, the cyberbullying, the misinformation. But if you chop too recklessly, you don't just lose the bad apples. You kill the root system entirely. You suffocate the tree.
That is a great analogy.
And we see this physical grounding with idioms too, right? Saying you went down the rabbit hole of short videos, or that sharing fake news adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, idioms do the heavy lifting of shared context. If I say I went down the rabbit hole, you instantly picture Alice in Wonderland tumbling into this confusing, endless maze.
Right, you don't need a paragraph to explain it.
Exactly. It makes a complex psychological experience, like losing 2 hours of your life to an infinite scroll, totally simple to listen to and instantly understandable.
So language shapes our digital and political realities by making the abstract feel physical. But what fascinates me is how language works when we're dealing with actual, literal physical extremes. The environment itself.
Oh, this is a great pivot.
Right, because we see how words protect our ideas, but they also frame our physical endurance. Think about summer heat.
The vocabulary for hot weather in English is surprisingly highly stratified.
It really is. I mean, we've got scorching, boiling, blazing, sweltering, roasting, and sizzling.
It's quite a list.
I used to think of these as just interchangeable synonyms. Honestly, if I walk outside in the middle of July, I might just say, it's boiling. But why do we even need so many words for hot? Isn't that enough to get the point across?
Well, you could say that, but these words provide entirely different sensory realities. They aren't just synonyms, they're specific experiences. Take blazing. It evokes the blinding, intense light of the sun. It's a visual, radiant heat. Sweltering, on the other hand, implies a suffocating, humid, breathless heat. You aren't just warm, you are physically trapped in the heavy air.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And scorching feels like it's actually damaging. It implies a heat so intense it feels like it might burn your skin, prompting physical reactions, like the text mentions people wrapping a cloth around their head just to shield themselves.
Yes, exactly. And the distinction that really matters here, the one that profoundly changes how we process our own endurance, is a tiny grammatical pivot. It's the difference between using an ed adjective and an ing adjective.
Wait, really? Like the difference between saying I am exhausted by the heat versus the heat is exhausting.
Yes, exactly that.
On the surface,
Yeah.
that sounds like a middle school grammar quiz, but you're saying it completely shifts the psychological framing of the situation.
Completely. It taps into a psychological concept called the locus of control. When you say, I am exhausted, you are describing your internal state. You're the one who is tired, and subconsciously it almost implies a personal failing.
Oh, I see.
But when you say the heat is exhausting, you are assigning the active, draining quality to the environment.
You're shifting the blame. You aren't tired because you're weak. You're actively being drained by a hostile element.
Precisely. If you picture a fruit vendor resting under an umbrella on a 105-degree day saying the heat is exhausting, validates that survival effort. It makes the communication simpler to understand because it accurately places the force acting upon the person.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. That idea of external forces acting on us, like the environment becoming hostile, it scales up dramatically when those conditions lead to sudden trauma.
Oh, absolutely.
When the stakes become literal life and death, like a wet road causing a car to skid, the language we use has to shift from sensory description to objective reality. Or, in some cases, it does the exact opposite to assign blame.
This is exactly where precision dictates how society processes tragedy and assigns legal liability. The vocabulary around traffic emergencies is a perfect example of this. There is a strict hierarchy of crash verbs utilized by journalists and law enforcement.
Yeah, you rarely see a news report just say, a car hit a truck. You see collide with, crash into, slam into, ram into, and smash into.
And the choice of verb completely changes the perceived severity and intent.
Right. Choosing the right verb here is like a movie director choosing the right camera angle.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Take collide with. That is the standard formal news style. Two vehicles collided on the highway. It's a wide drone shot on the news. It's factual, it's based in Newtonian physics, and most importantly, it's legally neutral. Neither party is inherently assigned violence or total fault in that single word.
But if a news anchor says a four-wheeler rammed into a parked lorry, that neutrality is completely gone. Ram into implies a powerful, heavy, almost intentional impact. It's a forceful penetration of someone else's space.
And then smash into puts you right in the passenger seat. It implies complete destruction. The materials themselves, glass, metal, concrete, are breaking apart.
It's fascinating how news agencies use these words to control the narrative distance. It creates this necessary emotional distance for news reporting.
We see that exact same emotional distancing in how casualties are reported too. Like if your friend gets hurt playing a sport, you'd tell people they got injured. but a news report says the driver sustained injuries.
Right. Sustained injuries is a clinical, sterile phrase. It serves a protective purpose for the public and the journalist, maintaining objectivity. It acts as a psychological buffer between the audience and the reality of the pain.
But that buffer gets violently ripped away when the event is too horrific to sanitize. The text gives an example of a man on a two-wheeler who ended up under the wheels of a bus. The phrasing shifts from died instantly, which is, still somewhat clinical, to crushed to death.
Crushed to death strips away all of that formal protective distance. It forces the listener to confront the brutal, graphic, physical reality of the accident. It really doesn't allow you to look away.
It also brings in this whole legal dimension of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like the phrase lost control of the vehicle, or a phrase that constantly shows up in crime reporting, fled the scene.
Fled the scene is a brilliant piece of legal phrasing. You didn't just leave, you ran away specifically to avoid responsibility.
Right, it's so loaded.
It implies a consciousness of guilt without a judge actually having to declare it. By choosing that exact phrase, a journalist or police officer communicates a complex legal and moral judgment in 3 simple words. It makes the narrative instantly understandable for the public.
Man, we've talked about how language weaponizes political debates and frames these huge life-or-death emergencies. But truthfully, most of our lives aren't spent in courtrooms or navigating crisis zones.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully. The most subtle and arguably most important linguistic framing actually happens in our mundane, everyday routines and relationships.
The everyday micro-interactions. Language is incredibly powerful here because it operates almost entirely under the radar. We often don't even realize we are making these choices.
Think about just everyday household actions.
Yeah.
You don't just open a bed sheet when you make the bed. You let it flutter open. You twist the cap open on a bottle rather than just pulling it. You drain and refill a water cooler.
Yeah.
Having these highly specific action verbs makes the mundane feel almost cinematic.
It's the difference between speaking in low-resolution black and white and speaking in high-definition color. But where this high-definition precision becomes critical is in navigating emotional impacts and human connection.
Yes, the relationships. There's a massive psychological gap in how we describe departures. It's the difference between someone walking away and someone walking out on you. I want you, the listener, to really imagine the emotional weight difference here. If you're arguing with a friend or a partner and they walk away, maybe they just saw a squirrel, or maybe they just need to cool down in the next room. It's a physical movement.
But if they walk out on you, that phrase carries an immense moral and emotional toll. It implies abandonment during a time of need.
It's a total betrayal.
Exactly. You don't just walk out on a casual chat, you walk out on a family or a deeply committed project when things get hard. Therapists and lawyers navigate these specific phrasal verbs constantly to either assign or diffuse moral guilt.
Oh, I bet.
If a lawyer says a client's partner walked away from the marriage, it sounds like a mutual unfortunate drifting apart. If they say the partner walked out on the family, it instantly paints a villain.
It's the exact same emotional coding as the difference between cursing your fate and blaming your luck. Like, if I drop my coffee on the way to work, I'll blame my luck. It's an inconvenience. But if a hurricane destroys my house, I'm cursing my fate. I'm angry at the universe itself. The words scale the tragedy perfectly.
They do, beautifully. Now, utilizing all these highly specific verbs and emotional nuances, it requires a lot of cognitive bandwidth.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
It's hard to pull the exact right phrase when you're under pressure, like in a high-stakes professional meeting or a stressful confrontation.
So what does this all mean for the listener who just wants to avoid that dreaded brain freeze in a meeting when everyone is staring at you waiting for an insightful answer?
This is where structure creates simplicity. The source material outlines this golden formula for topic expansion. It acts as a mental scaffold.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Instead of panicking about what to say next, you just walk your brain through a predictable 6-step path. What is the topic? Why is it important? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Can I provide a personal example? And finally, what is a suggestion or prediction for the future?
So it's what, why, pros, cons, personal future, 6 straightforward steps.
Having that rigid structure organizes the mind. By removing the panic of figuring out the sequence of your ideas, you free up your brain's working memory. That freed up bandwidth allows you to actually retrieve and utilize the rich, precise vocabulary we've been discussing without stumbling.
It all comes back to our core mission today, making it simple to listen and easy to understand. You aren't forcing the listener to untangle a messy web of thoughts. You're guiding them smoothly down a well-lit path. So let's tie this all together for you.
Sounds good.
What we've discovered today is that being well-informed and an excellent fluent communicator, whether you're trying to win a debate on social media regulation, accurately describe the severity of a car crash, or navigate a difficult relationship, isn't about memorizing a dictionary.
No, it's about understanding the tangible, specific weight of words. It's knowing when the heat is sweltering, when a policy might stifle an idea, or when a simple disagreement has suddenly escalated into a collision.
It's the realization that words are not just passive labels we slap onto the world after the fact. They are the active tools we use to construct the reality our listeners experience.
Which brings up a really fascinating final thought, deeply connected to the theory of linguistic relativity.
Ooh, okay. Lay it on us.
If the exact words we choose dictate the reality we convey to others, if swapping hot for sweltering changes the emotion, how does learning these nuances actually change the way your own brain processes and remembers your daily experiences?
Oh, wow. That changes the whole picture.
Right. If you start experiencing the world through a lens of precise, high-definition language, does a hot day actually feel different to your nervous system when you subconsciously label it sweltering instead of just hot? Does an argument hold a different physiological weight in your memory when you encode it in your brain as being walked out on rather than just left?
Does the language we use literally build the physical and emotional world we live in? That is an incredible thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these nuggets of knowledge, these precise little tools, and try noticing them in your very next conversation. Keep it simple, keep it clear, and we will catch you next time.